Now, if you've been following this channel at all, then you would know my feelings about what we should do in the window and what I think about our team and where our holes are and what I think about our midfield. Declan Rice is arguably one of the best midfielders in the world, and Odegaard is at worst a top 3 central attacking midfielder in the Premier League. Declan Rice, in my opinion, after one season, has pretty much paid us back for his £105 million price tag already. Martin Odegaard, while he is the captain for a reason. So those two in midfield for us are absolutely fundamental for us in the present and the future. But when we got Declan Rice at first, I thought we had our defensive midfielder for the future. I thought we had our man to sit in front of the back four and defend and make our team strong at the back. But after this season, it seems, Arteta would agree with this, that Declan Rice's best position is actually as an 8, playing the box-to-box role, playing both offense and defense, driving at people, winning the ball high up. I think that's Declan Rice's best position. And now that leaves us kind of in a tricky position of what do we do in the defensive midfield area. We do have Thomas Partey and Jorginho. Jorginho has just extended his contract, but he is essentially going to be a backup for Arsenal. But what do we do with Thomas Partey? By all reports, Thomas Partey will leave this summer. That will force us to go get another player that can play central defensive midfielder. And he has to be kind of a starting level player, borderline world class at least. But again, going off most of the reports, our first choice player in that position is Newcastle United's Bruno Guimaraes. And I couldn't agree more with that. He definitely deserves to be our first choice option in that position. And if we sign him, partner with Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard, we could genuinely have the midfield of dreams. But why do I think this? Well, that's what we'll be talking about today. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Gunner Central here. I hope you're all doing well. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. And let's get into it. Now, with so many other talented players in the same position as Bruno around Europe, why do I think Bruno should be our number 1 target in this position? Well, first, João Palhinha is an extremely talented defensive midfielder that will certainly leave Fulham if he gets given the chance. I mean, he almost left Fulham to Bayern Munich last season. He is tall, he is strong in the air, and he's good in the tackle. But why don't I think Palhinha should be ahead of Bruno Guimaraes? Well, I still think Bruno is a slightly better CDM than Palhinha, but also at the age of 28 years old, almost 29, he's a little bit older than the type of signing that Arteta tends to like. Onana from Everton, really good, also fairly young. I just don't think he is as quite good as Bruno Guimaraes. I wouldn't be opposed to Onana coming to Arsenal. But I mean, to be honest, you can look across Europe, you can look across England. To be honest, not many, if any, midfielders in the CDM role that Arsenal can realistically get this summer are quite as good as Bruno Guimaraes. Bruno, yes, may be a little bit undersized, but outside of that, I don't see any weakness in Bruno's game. First, like Declan Rice, Bruno is able to play in multiple positions in midfield, playing both the box-to-box role and the CDM. Obviously, if we get him, you'd imagine he'd be playing the CDM role for us, and I think that is where Bruno is at his best. Bruno is a decent box-to-box player, but I think if he can sit in front of the back four next to Martin Odegaard and Declan Rice, I think that'd be his best role, his best position by far. Now, like I mentioned, yes, Bruno Guimaraes is slightly undersized for a CDM, standing at just 6 foot and being in the bottom 19% in aerial duels won in his position, but he more than makes up for it with his physicality and football IQ. Bruno has won 53 tackles through the season. He has won 286 duels, winning 56.7% of them. He has had 35 interceptions, 16 blocks, 237 recoveries. He has won possession in the final third 31 times and only committed 50 fouls all season long in the Premier League, all of which are above average for his position. Bruno may not be the biggest and physically imposing CDM in the world, but his progressive passing and dribbling is very good. His football IQ is also extremely high, and next to Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard, this midfield would honestly be amazing. All three of them complement each other's game so well. Bruno has a high work rate like Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. Bruno gets stuck in on the defensive side of the ball. Bruno is happy to do the dirty work, allowing Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard to focus on the ball playing side. Bruno also has a decent eye for goal, scoring 7 goals. Decent at playmaking with 10 assists. And overall, Bruno is just an extremely solid player across the board. If he plays as the CDM, Bruno Guimaraes sitting in front of the backline and centre backs that we have, next to Martin Odegaard and Declan Rice, that will be a scary midfield for years to come, and that spine of the team is so strong. Saliba, Bruno Guimaraes, Declan Rice, that is a strong spine. Now, the only drawbacks you could possibly put on Bruno Guimaraes, in my opinion, is the price. I would happily pay, let's say, £80 million for Bruno, but I don't think anything more than that is justifiable. Newcastle, of course, will demand a high amount, and him being only 26 years old, they do have some bargaining power, so we may have to pay something in the 90 millions, but I think a fee of £80 million is fair for Newcastle. They're getting a lot of money for him, but also it's still a fairly decent price that I could see Bruno Guimaraes living up to, especially with Partey expected to leave and Arsenal able to keep Partey's salary off the books for next season. It will open up a bit of funds for us to pull a transfer off like this. Honestly, Bruno for me would be completely game changing in our midfield. He's young, he's aggressive, has a high football IQ, isn't often injured, and can be the anchor for our midfield, allowing Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard to have more freedom in the midfield. I genuinely think this trio would absolutely be insane. Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard arguably had their best games of the season when you had Thomas Partey at CDM or Jorginho at CDM. This time you put someone that is world class, that can play most games because he's not injury prone in Bruno Guimaraes, he's 26 years old. You put him at CDM while Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard can cook all season long. Think about it, this midfield trio would all be fairly young and on their day are all world class in their own right. I can't see any other potential target doing better than what Bruno could do in this Arsenal team under Mikel Arteta. For me, Bruno Guimaraes is and should be our number one target in midfield this summer.